Chapter 1. The day I drowned in my own sock drawer. How I finally admitted I had a problem with stuff. It started with a simple mission: find the other half of my favorite Argyle sock. You know, the one, that perfect blend of cotton that doesn't bunch up in your shoes but also doesn't slide down your ankle every 3 steps. We've all been there, right? Little did I know this innocent sock hunt would become my rock-bottom moment. There I was, Tuesday morning, already running late for work, as usual, when I yanked open my sock drawer with the force of someone expecting cooperation from an inanimate object. Instead, I was met with what can only be described as a textile tsunami. The drawer had reached critical mass, and my desperate tug was the earthquake that triggered the wave. Socks. Everywhere. Like a magician's handkerchief trick gone horribly wrong. Some of these socks had been with me since college. I'm pushing 40, people. Why was I still holding on to mismatched tube socks from 2006? What life-altering emergency was I preparing for that required 17 pairs of holiday-themed footwear? This is fine, I lied to myself, standing knee-deep in cotton blends and elastic, some still with price tags attached. Everyone has a lot of socks. But then I saw a pair of Star Wars socks still in packaging from 2019. The plastic yellowing slightly, the cardboard backing bent. I had completely forgotten I owned them. And there they sat, gathering dust in sock purgatory, waiting for their moment to shine. That's when the epiphany hit me like a caffeinated slap to the face: I didn't own stuff. My stuff owned me. According to a study I later obsessively Googled while having an existential crisis, the average American home contains over 300,000 items. 300,000. And there I was, adding to that statistic one impulse purchase sock at a time. My apartment wasn't small, my stuff was just multiplying like rabbits with nothing better to do. My closets weren't inadequate, my purchasing habits were out of control. My storage solutions weren't failing, I just had too damn much to store. So there, buried under an avalanche of neglected hosiery, I made a vow: something had to change. Not my apartment. Not my furniture. Me. And that, my friends, is how I began my journey toward living a simpler life, starting with the great sock purge of 2023. Spoiler alert. I never did find that Argyle sock. But I found something better. The first glimpse of freedom. Chapter 2. Confessions of a Reformed Gadget Hoarder. My journey from "but it was on sale" to "but do I need it?" Let me paint you a picture. It's 2 a.m., I'm 3 glasses of wine deep, scrolling through lightning deals on my phone, and there it is, a combination avocado slicer pit remover masher with ergonomic handle. Something I never knew existed but suddenly couldn't live without. Only 4 left in stock. 62% off, the screen screamed at me. My finger hovered over by now with the decisiveness of someone disarming a bomb. Click. Purchase complete. Future clutter acquired. This wasn't an isolated incident. My apartment had become a graveyard for gadgets with very specific purposes: a banana-shaped banana slicer, an electric egg cooker, a vegetable spiralizer the size of a small child, and, my personal favorite, a miniature waffle maker that imprinted tiny hearts on breakfast foods that I ate alone while watching reruns of Friends. I wish I could tell you my gadget obsession was limited to the kitchen, but oh no, I was an equal opportunity accumulator. My bathroom housed an electric facial cleansing brush, 3 different hairstyling tools still in their boxes, and a foot spa that had been used exactly once before I discovered that sitting still for 30 minutes was surprisingly difficult. Then there was my pride and joy, a drawer filled with cables and chargers for devices I no longer owned, Because you never know when you'll need a proprietary charging cable for a 2007 flip phone. My turning point came during a power outage. As I fumbled through drawers looking for a flashlight, which I definitely owned, somewhere, I realized I couldn't find the essential tools I needed because they were buried under layers of things I'd never use. According to research that I later found comforting, misery loves company. After all, the average American spends about 2.5 days per year looking for misplaced items. That's 60 hours of my life annually spent muttering, "I know it's here somewhere," while digging through drawers of useless gadgets. The real kicker? Studies show we use just 20% of what we own regularly. The other 80%? Just taking up space and collecting dust while silently judging us. So I made a pact with myself. No more just-in-case purchases. No more "this will change my life" gadgets. Before buying anything new, I'd ask myself one simple question. Do I need this, or am I just bored and shopping for dopamine? Turns out, it was usually the latter. And that, friends, is how I began leaving my credit card at home and my shopping apps uninstalled, the first wobbly steps of a gadget hoarder in recovery. Chapter 3. The Great Purge, when my apartment started breathing again. Turning my cramped living space into a sanctuary without moving walls. There comes a day in every clutterbug's life when you look around and think, when did I start living in a storage unit that happens to have a shower? For me, that moment arrived when I couldn't open my hall closet without causing an avalanche that would have impressed National Geographic photographers. My apartment wasn't small, it was suffocating under the weight of my possessions. Every surface had become a landing pad for random items waiting to be put away. Except away was already stuffed to capacity with things I hadn't seen in years but couldn't bear to part with. Remember those "in case of emergency, break glass" boxes? My entire apartment had become one giant emergency box, except I was the one silently screaming for help. The breaking point? When my mom announced a surprise visit, and I realized my quick tidy-up would require a team of professional organizers, 3 dumpsters, and possibly an exorcist. So began the Great Purge of 2023. I started with the classic Marie Kondo question, does this spark joy? Unfortunately, everything from my collection of concert ticket stubs to the bread maker I used exactly once seemed to spark joy, or at the very least, spark anxiety about letting go. So I created my own question: if this disappeared overnight, would I actually replace it? Game changer. The first bags of donations felt like ripping off a Band-Aid. The 12th bag? Pure euphoria. By bag 20, I was high on decluttering endorphins, drunkenly texting friends, "I can see my countertops." The most shocking discovery wasn't what I owned, it was what owning it had cost me. Not just money, but mental bandwidth. Every item required decision-making energy: keep, wash, fix, store, display. My stuff wasn't just taking up physical space, it was colonizing my mental space. Research backs this up. Princeton neuroscientists found that physical clutter competes for your attention, resulting in decreased performance and increased stress. Translation: my collection of decorative throw pillows was literally making me dumber and more anxious. As surfaces emerged and drawers closed without pushing, something magical happened. My apartment exhaled. And for the first time in years, so did I. I didn't need a bigger place. I just needed less stuff. Chapter 4. Minimalism for normal people who still like some things. Because nobody wants to sleep on the floor with just one spoon. Let's address the elephant in the room, those minimalist influencers with their stark white apartments containing nothing but a single orchid and perhaps a suspiciously clean white couch. You know, The ones who make you feel like owning more than 3 shirts means you've failed at life. Here's my confession. I tried to be that person. For approximately 9 days, I aspired to live in what effectively looked like a fancy hospital room. Then I remembered something crucial: I'm a human being who enjoys comfort, color, and not having to wash my only spoon after every meal. The internet's version of minimalism often feels like aesthetic deprivation packaged as enlightenment. Look how evolved I am with my empty rooms and singular chair. Meanwhile, you're wondering if keeping your book collection makes you a hoarder. It doesn't. True minimalism isn't about owning exactly 100 things or sleeping on a mattress on the floor like you're perpetually in your first post-college apartment. It's about intentionality, keeping what genuinely enhances your life and releasing what doesn't. For me, that meant my collection of well-loved novels stayed, but the "someday I'll read these aspirational books" went to the library. My kitchen gadgets were ruthlessly evaluated: the espresso machine that brought daily joy? Keeper. The pasta maker used once in 2018? Goodbye. I discovered my sweet spot between owns nothing and needs to rent a storage unit. I call it practical minimalism, though not living like a chaotic goblin surrounded by random crap would also be accurate. Studies show there's actual science behind this balanced approach. Research from Cornell University found that moderation in possessions, not extreme sparseness, correlates with highest well-being. Our brains appreciate order but also crave personalization and comfort. So no, I don't have a capsule wardrobe with only neutral linen pieces that can be worn 74 different ways. I still own more than one pair of scissors. My couch has throw pillows, multiple ones. And yet, everything I own serves a purpose, whether practical or bringing me genuine joy. That's the secret. Minimalism isn't one size fits all. Your version should fit your life, not someone else's Instagram aesthetic. Chapter 5. Digital decluttering, or how I stopped drowning in notifications. Breaking up with my phone, we're still friends, just seeing less of each other. The irony wasn't lost on me. There I was, smugly donating bags of unused stuff to charity while my digital life resembled a hoarder's paradise. My phone? A notification battleground. My inbox? The place where important emails go to be buried alive under promotional offers for stores I shopped at once in 2017. My aha moment came during a dinner with friends when I realized I'd checked my phone 14 times in under an hour. Not because I was expecting crucial news, but because my thumb had developed its own consciousness and apparently really needed to know if anyone had liked my brunch photo. We all know the statistics. The average person checks their phone 96 times a day, that's once every 10 minutes. But numbers don't capture the mental exhaustion of constant digital vigilance, the Pavlovian response to every ding and buzz, the existential panic when battery life dips below 15%. So I embarked on my digital decluttering journey with the same ruthlessness I'd applied to my sock drawer. First target, notifications. Did I really need my weather app alerting me that it's raining, while I'm looking out the window at rain? Did I need instant updates from that meditation app ironically stressing me out with reminders to relax? Hard no. I turned off notifications for everything except calls, texts from actual humans I like, and my banking app, because adult responsibility, unfortunately. The withdrawal was real. My phantom vibration syndrome, that twitch where you swear your phone buzzed but it didn't, intensified for days. I'd compulsively check my silent apps, panicking that I'd missed something critical. Spoiler, I hadn't. The world continued turning without my immediate awareness of every social media like. Next came email. I mass unsubscribed from newsletters I never opened, set up filters to organize what remained, and most radically stopped treating my inbox like a 24/7 drive-through window. Emails could wait until designated check times. The result wasn't just a cleaner digital space but a quieter mind. Research from the University of California found that constant digital interruptions can drop your IQ by about 10 points, the cognitive equivalent of losing a night's sleep. My digital decluttering hadn't just freed up storage space, it had given me back my attention, the most valuable currency in our distraction economy. My phone and I? We still see each other. Just on my terms now. Chapter 6. Money Matters, Saving Cash by Not Buying Crap. The shocking revelation that not shopping saves money. Let me share a groundbreaking financial strategy that my business degree somehow failed to teach me. If you don't buy stuff, you keep more money. I know, revolutionary. Someone call Nobel. For years, my relationship with money resembled my relationship with pizza, intensely passionate but fundamentally unhealthy. I'd check my bank balance on Monday, promise to be responsible, then find myself on Thursday wondering how I'd spent $74 at Target when I only went in for toothpaste. We've all been there, standing in checkout lines justifying purchases with the mathematical gymnastics of "it's only $20, which is basically $10, which is practically free." My financial awakening came via a mortifying spreadsheet moment. After tracking my spending for 1 month, a task I'd avoided like jury duty, I discovered I'd spent more on miscellaneous shopping than on rent. Rent. The place that keeps me from living under actual bridges. What's worse? I couldn't even remember what I'd bought. My apartment wasn't filled with treasures bringing immense joy, just random stuff that had seemed momentarily essential, like that avocado-shaped guacamole container, because regular bowls are so 2019. Research from Harris Poll confirms I'm not alone. 78% of Americans confess to impulse shopping, and nearly 40% can't recall what they purchased after just 1 week. We're collectively amnesiacs with credit cards. So I implemented what I call the Wait 72 rule. Any non-essential purchase gets a mandatory 72-hour consideration period. This simple cooling-off time has saved me from countless limited-time offers and exclusive deals that, shockingly, remained available 3 days later. The financial impact was immediate. My first simplified month, I spent 62% less on random purchases. Instead of buying things, I started buying freedom from debt anxiety, from storage problems, from the constant pressure to upgrade perfectly functional items. Here's the truth our consumption-driven culture doesn't advertise: the most reliable path to financial comfort isn't earning more, it's wanting less. Now when friends ask how I afford vacations, I'm tempted to say, well, I don't own 17 throw blankets or subscribe to 14 streaming services I never use. But that sounds judgy, so I just smile and say I've gotten good at prioritizing what actually matters. The simple life isn't just more peaceful, it's substantially cheaper. Who knew that the secret to saving money was as simple as not spending it on crap? Chapter 7. Simple food that doesn't require a PhD in culinary arts. Eating well without 47 ingredients you'll use once then forget about. My relationship with cooking has evolved like most millennial love stories: initial excitement, unrealistic expectations, crushing disappointment, and finally, if you're lucky, a comfortable compromise. It started with cooking shows that convinced me I too could create elaborate 9-component meals on a Tuesday night after work. It's just a simple weeknight dinner, the impossibly perky host would chirp while casually making pasta from scratch and reducing sauces that required constant attention for 40 minutes. My reality? Getting home at 7 p.m., staring blankly into my fridge, then ordering delivery while surrounded by specialty ingredients purchased for recipes I never made. My pantry looked like the island of misfit spices, star anise, saffron threads, and something called asafoetida that I bought for one Indian recipe and never touched again. The breaking point came when I calculated that I'd spent $167 on ingredients for a single dinner party dish that, if I'm being honest, tasted just okay. That's when I realized food had become unnecessarily complicated. Here's what those gorgeous cookbooks don't tell you. Roughly 80% of home cooks use the same 20 ingredients most of the time. A study from Cornell found that the average family rotates through just 9 meals regularly. 9. Yet my cookbook collection suggested I should be preparing new culinary masterpieces nightly. My food simplification strategy began with an honest inventory. Which meals did I actually cook repeatedly? Which ingredients earned their kitchen real estate? The results were humbling but liberating. I narrowed down to a capsule pantry, yes, like a capsule wardrobe but for your kitchen. Basic proteins, versatile veggies, and adaptable grains became my foundation. I kept spices that worked across multiple cuisines, cumin, I'm looking at you with appreciation, and released the one-hit wonders. The strangest outcome? My food got better. When you cook the same handful of meals repeatedly, you actually improve through iteration rather than constantly starting as a novice with new recipes. Now I can whip up 5 different meals with essentially the same ingredients, just by changing seasonings and preparation methods. My grocery shopping takes 15 minutes instead of an hour. My food waste has plummeted. And my takeout budget has shrunk to a reasonable sometimes treat rather than a nightly necessity. Don't get me wrong, I still appreciate a good culinary adventure. But saving those for weekends and special occasions means they're actually enjoyable rather than stressful. Simple food isn't boring food, it's food that fits into real life. And real life has enough complications without worrying about where to find fresh lemongrass at 8 p.m. on a Wednesday. Chapter 8. Capsule wardrobes, looking put together while barely trying. Fashion for people who hate deciding what to wear. Let's start with a confession. I once owned 27 black t-shirts, each allegedly different in some crucial way that I could never articulate but felt deeply at time of purchase. This one has a slightly scooped neck. This one is more of a charcoal. This one is cotton modal blend for superior drape. I'd explain to my increasingly concerned roommate. My closet was packed tighter than a subway car at rush hour, yet every morning I'd stand in front of it moaning the universal lament. I have nothing to wear. The breaking point came during a move when I had to physically handle each garment. The evidence was damning, tags still attached to impulse purchases, skinny clothes I was saving for when I lost that mythical 10 pounds, and trendy items that made me look like I was desperately trying to infiltrate Gen Z. Most telling were the items pushed to the back, the fashion equivalent of those condiments expiring in your fridge door. They weren't bad, they just weren't me. Research from a closet organization app found that the average person wears only 20% of their wardrobe regularly. That means 80% of our clothes are essentially taking up space and mental bandwidth while contributing nothing to our actual lives. Enter the capsule wardrobe concept, which I initially dismissed as something for minimalist influencers who enjoy looking like sophisticated gallery owners dressed exclusively in beige linen. But I like color. I protested to no one. And patterns. And joy. Then I realized capsule wardrobes aren't about aesthetic restriction, they're about intentional curation. My version didn't need to look like someone else's Instagram-worthy collection of neutral basics. My approach was ruthlessly practical. What did I actually wear repeatedly? What made me feel good and functioned for my real life, not my fantasy life where I'm regularly invited to galas. What worked together so I could grab any top and any bottom and look intentionally dressed rather than like someone who got dressed in the dark. The result was surprisingly liberating. Fewer items, but better ones. Less quantity, more quality. And the profound daily gift of not having to make 7 a.m. decisions about whether teal and burgundy can work together. Answer: my brain cannot handle color theory before coffee. Now, everything in my closet fits, flatters, and feels like me. Getting dressed takes minutes. Laundry is manageable. Packing for trips is no longer an existential crisis. The best part? I look more put together than ever because everything I own actually works for my body and lifestyle, not the body I'm hoping for or the lifestyle some marketing team convinced me I should have. It turns out that style isn't about having more options, it's about having the right ones. Chapter 9. The Joy of Empty Spaces, and Why Your Cat Will Thank You. Creating room for actual living in your living room. Remember when we called rooms living rooms? Somewhere along the way, mine had morphed into a storage but make it decorative room, a showroom of items that had survived previous purges by being just attractive enough to justify their existence. My epiphany came when I watched my friend's cat attempt to navigate my living room. The poor creature looked like a furry contestant on an obstacle course, leaping from one tiny clear surface to another. If a creature designed for graceful movement couldn't find space, what hope did my clumsy human self have? We've been conditioned to believe that empty space is wasteful, a void begging to be filled. Interior design shows reinforce this, with hosts cheerfully filling every surface with decorative objects that gather dust and serve no purpose beyond visual interest. Designers speak for more stuff to clean around. I started noticing how luxury spaces, those high-end hotel rooms and spas we pay good money to enjoy, aren't crammed with knickknacks. Their primary luxury is actually emptiness. Space. Room to breathe. The absence of visual noise. Research backs this up. Studies from Princeton University's Neuroscience Institute show that physical clutter in your surroundings competes for your attention, increases stress hormones, and reduces your ability to focus. Turns out my collection of decorative bowls wasn't just taking up physical space, it was consuming mental bandwidth. So I began the counterintuitive practice of valuing emptiness. I cleared surfaces without immediately refilling them. I left walls blank rather than covering every inch with gallery-style arrangements. I created breathing room between furniture pieces instead of maximizing storage potential. The result was transformative. My modest apartment suddenly felt larger. Cleaning became easier without having to work around and under decorative obstacles. The items I did keep, now given proper space to be appreciated, actually looked more beautiful. Most surprising was the psychological impact. My mind felt clearer, as if the physical spaciousness had created mental spaciousness. Friends commented that my place felt peaceful and calming, words never previously used to describe my home or, frankly, my personality. This isn't about embracing stark minimalism or rejecting personal expression. My space still reflects who I am, just the edited version, not the extended director's cut with every deleted scene included. I've kept meaningful art, comfortable seating, and yes, a few carefully chosen decorative items that genuinely bring joy. The simple formula I follow now. Purpose first, beauty second, quantity last. Every item needs to earn its place by being functional, beautiful, or ideally both, and even then, less is almost always more. As for my friend's cat, she now visits regularly, sprawling luxuriously across open surfaces and giving me the slow blink that cat experts say translates to "I trust you, human." High praise indeed. Chapter 10. But what if I need it someday? A recovery program. Letting go of things you've kept for 10 years and never used once. If I had $1 for every time I've uttered the phrase, "But what if I need it someday?" I could afford a bigger house to store all the things I'm keeping just in case I need them someday. It's a vicious cycle that Marie Kondo never prepared me for. My just-in-case collection included highlights such as instruction manuals for appliances I no longer owned, cables for extinct technology, textbooks from college courses I barely passed, and my personal favorite, 3 different formal dresses for hypothetical fancy events that never materialized in my Netflix and sweatpants lifestyle. The psychology behind this is fascinating and slightly depressing. Behavioral economists call it loss aversion, the idea that the pain of losing something outweighs the pleasure of gaining something of equal value. Translated to cluttered person speak. The theoretical future pain of not having that random HDMI cable feels worse than the actual present pain of tripping over a box of random cables daily. Then there's the sunk cost fallacy, continuing an endeavor because you've already invested resources, even when abandoning it is clearly better. I paid good money for this bread maker. I'd protest, as it collected dust in its 4th year of non-use. The fact that keeping it cost me valuable space and peace of mind somehow didn't factor into the equation. My breaking point came during a power outage when I couldn't find actual emergency supplies, flashlights, batteries, because they were buried under all the stuff I was keeping for emergencies. The irony was not lost on me. So I developed a 3-question system for my just-in-case items. 1. How easily could I replace this if needed? Most things are surprisingly accessible these days. 2. What's the actual likelihood I'll need this? Be brutally honest, you are not suddenly going to take up competitive badminton. 3. What's the cost of storing this versus the cost of replacing it? Storage has hidden prices, mental bandwidth, cleanup time, and actual square footage. The results were eye-opening. That bread maker? Available for next-day delivery if my dormant baking gene suddenly activated. Those just-in-case formal dresses? Rentable for the rare occasions they're needed. Those vintage electronics? Outdated by the time any hypothetical use arose. According to a study from UCLA's Center on Everyday Lives of Families, managing excess possessions is a significant source of daily stress for many people, particularly women. In the name of being prepared, we're actually burdening ourselves. So I started letting go, and the strangest thing happened: almost none of my what-if scenarios came true. For the 1 or 2 that did, the solutions were far simpler than maintaining a personal warehouse of possibilities. Now when I catch myself saying "but what if," I counter with "but what about now?" Because the present reality of peaceful space almost always trumps hypothetical future needs. And in a delicious twist of universal irony, it was only after getting rid of most of my just-in-case items that I finally had enough space to be properly prepared for actual emergencies. Chapter 11. Simple relationships, quality over quantity. Why having 5,000 social media friends doesn't mean you have someone to help you move. Facebook once helpfully informed me that I had 847 friends. This seemed impressive until I needed help moving a couch, sent out an SOS, and discovered my actual friend count was closer to 6, one of whom only showed up because I promised pizza. My social media feeds were crowded with updates from former classmates, random conference acquaintances, and people I met once at parties whose lives I now knew intimately despite not recognizing them if we passed on the street. Meanwhile, I was texting the same 3 people about everything actually important in my life. The math wasn't mateing, as the kids say. The simple truth is that humans aren't designed for hundreds of relationships. Anthropologist Robin Dunbar famously suggested that people can maintain about 150 meaningful connections, with only about 5 to 15 in our inner circle of true intimacy. Yet there I was, spending precious energy keeping tabs on my former roommate's cousin's destination wedding. My relationship simplification wasn't about becoming a hermit. It was about acknowledging the difference between an audience and a community. Between people who witness your life and people who are actually in it. I started with a radical notion: perhaps I didn't need to keep in touch with everyone I'd ever met. Perhaps some relationships had served their purpose, and that was okay. Perhaps losing touch wasn't a failure but a natural evolution. The decluttering began with social media, where I muted or unfollowed connections that generated more comparison or obligation than joy. I stopped forcing interactions with people I had little in common with beyond a shared past. I declined invitations to events that felt like obligations rather than opportunities. Most importantly, I redirected that reclaimed energy toward deepening the relationships that actually nourished me. Regular calls with faraway friends replaced endless scrolling through strangers' updates. Coffee dates replaced comment threads. Quality time replaced quantifiable metrics. Research from Harvard's long-running happiness study confirms what might seem obvious: the quality of our close relationships is the strongest predictor of our overall life satisfaction and health. Not career achievements, not wealth, not the number of people who like our vacation photos. The paradox of simplified relationships is that by having fewer of them, each one becomes richer. By connecting more deeply with fewer people, we satisfy our human need for belonging more completely than superficial connections with many ever could. My friend circle is smaller now, but when I needed help after surgery last year, every single person I reached out to showed up. No pizza bribes required. Quality over quantity isn't just a decluttering principle for your closet. It might be even more important for your heart. Chapter 12. The Zen of Maintenance. Keeping it simple for the long haul. How not to backslide into your hoarding ways after a month. Let's be honest. Decluttering is like losing weight. The hard part isn't dropping the pounds, it's keeping them off. I say this as someone who once Marie Kondo'd my entire apartment in a weekend frenzy, only to find myself 6 months later wondering how I'd accumulated 3 new junk drawers and a chair of unworn but not quite dirty enough for laundry clothes. The cycle was depressingly familiar: inspiration, perspiration, celebration, deterioration, resignation. Rinse and repeat, usually after watching a home organization show or scrolling through minimalist Instagram accounts while eating ice cream straight from the container. The problem wasn't my initial enthusiasm, it was my failure to create sustainable systems for my actual life, not the idealized version where I'm the type of person who immediately files paperwork instead of creating archaeological layers on my kitchen counter. Behavioral science offers some clarity. According to research from Duke University, about 45% of our daily behaviors are habitual things we do without conscious decision. Creating a simpler life isn't about constant vigilance, it's about rewiring those automatic behaviors. My sustainable simplicity strategy began with identifying the specific clutter triggers that reliably derailed me: online shopping when bored, accepting freebies I didn't need, delaying small decisions until they became big organizational disasters. For each trigger, I created a corresponding maintenance habit. Unsubscribed from retail emails. Established a one-in one-out rule for my weakness categories: looking at you, coffee mugs. Set up capture zones for items that needed decisions, with weekly processing time already scheduled. But the real game changer was embracing imperfection. My previous attempts at simplicity had operated on binary thinking. I was either perfectly minimal or a total failure. The maintenance phase demanded a more nuanced approach, not perfect simplicity, but better than before. Not a life devoid of possessions, but one where possessions served my actual priorities. Research from habit formation experts suggests that consistency matters more than perfection. Small daily actions accumulate more lasting change than occasional marathon purges. My touch-it-once rule for mail and my 5-minute daily reset ritual have prevented more clutter than all my previous dramatic decluttering weekends combined. The simple life isn't a destination, it's an ongoing practice like meditation or exercise. Some days you nail it. Some days you buy unnecessary throw pillows because they were on sale. The goal isn't perfection but intention. Not elimination of all possessions but curation of what truly serves you. 3 years into my simplified lifestyle, my home still isn't Instagram-worthy minimalist perfection. But it is consistently peaceful. The maintenance isn't always sexy or dramatic, but it is sustainable. And that not a picture-perfect lifestyle was the goal all along. Simple living, it turns out, is actually pretty simple. Choose what matters, release what doesn't, and make peace with the ongoing dance between the two.